Before there was a Kanye West, before there was a Candice Owens, there was Mr. Harris, Brown Deer High School teacher.
And amen. And boom, shakalaka. Can you give the Lord some praise in here today?
Kanye West and Candace Owens set the world on fire today. They were at a fashion show in Paris. I think they were featuring the Yeezy line. This is Kanye West's ninth year as a fashion icon. And they wore these shirts that said, White Lives Matter. Oh, my goodness. It created a firestorm. And of course, you had the black haters out calling them Uncle Tom, Coon, Step and Fetch, and all the usual epithets. But the duo didn't care here. They were making a point. And of course, Kanye was talking about the fraud that Black Lives Matter is, and they are a fraud. They scammed so many people, sucked in corporations, just made a fool out of the American people who embraced this craziness. But here's what is absolutely fantastic. You have everybody being upset because these Americans of African descent wore a White Lives Matter shirt, but they didn't have a problem with white people wearing Black Lives Matter shirts, especially as they were looting and rioting, across America a couple of years ago. Why the double standard? Well, it's been a double standard for decades, and unfortunately, it's still a double standard here in 2022. But I want you to know that before Kanye and before Candace, I did the very same thing. Back in 1991, my first year as a high school teacher, there was a lot of racial tension in the school. I had heard the previous year that they actually had walkouts where the black students were making demands for this or that or whatever. But when I got there, I noticed the problems and I was asked to kind of deal with it. And I said, okay, I will, but you just gotta be patient with me. You got to give me a little bit of leeway. And what I ended up doing was taking a different take on a very popular shirt at the time. The shirt said, "It's a black thing you wouldn't understand," which is saying, you know what, if you're not black, don't even ask because you wouldn't understand. And I'm not going to take the time to explain it, which on a very basic level is very, very rude. Now, the other shirt that was very popular, it said that the blacker the college, the sweeter the knowledge. So what I did, on a dare was to take a shirt and I wrote on the front of the shirt, "It's a white thing you wouldn't understand." And on the back of the shirt, I put, "The whiter the college, the better the knowledge." Now, a little bit of background. I was the only black teacher in the school. It's a suburban school. You had about 20% of a black population. But that shirt created a firestorm. You had people coming down to the classroom. They was cussing me out. People were crying. White folks were afraid. The principal even called me down and asked me to take the shirt off. And I told him that I would take the shirt off as soon as he mandated that black students stop wearing the blacker the college, the sweeter the knowledge, or it's a black thing you wouldn't understand. They take the shirt off, I'll take my shirt off. I didn't back down. And of course, the principal, he did. Well, what's the point of all of this? 30 years ago, I was on top of this thing telling people, you know what, you could change one word, just one word, and all of a sudden it's going to be considered racism. It's clearly a double standard. The truth of the matter is, if you want to point out the fact that the blacker something is, the better something is, then, white folks should be able to say the same. Folks should be able to stand up for their culture just as much as anybody else. But in America, that's a real problem because the race hustlers out there need for people to be upset, need for people to hate white people. Now, in 1991, when I did this, we made a big, strong point. And actually, I found out a little bit later in the school year, after 10 years of teaching there, but after the first school year, that it really did make an impact. And it got people talking and it got people thinking. And even though people were kind of salty about it, they understood the point. What a shame that over 30 years later, here we are in the same situation. I would say even worse. Things got much, much worse after the election of Barack Hussein Obama. things were going along swimmingly. We were kind of dealing with our problems. If you were asking people about is racism a problem in 1995 and 2000, they would have said, no, not really. Things are getting better. It's not part of my experience. But it wasn't until the election of Barack Obama that all of a sudden we had the very powerful, the politically elite stirring up the pot. It wasn't until the election of Barack Hussein Obama that you had Reverend Al Sharpton become the unofficial civil rights leader of the White House, which he made 60 visits, and they planned how to keep things stirred up. Then, of course, we have all of the incidences of, with Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, yada, 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 hands up, don't shoot, the kneeling because of police brutality, Black Lives Matter, racial angst, racial tension. Why? Because Democrats were not in office when it really picked up. Now that Democrats are back in office, well, things are kind of settled down. Have you noticed that? We don't have a whole lot of these Black Lives Matter marching. As a matter of fact, we found out that Black Lives Matter was really a Marxist front, which created far more damage than it helped anything. So kudos to Candice Owens and kudos to Kanye West for exposing the whole thing again. It's a real shame. But I want you to know that if you want to talk about trailblazers, because I was doing this stuff back in the 1990s, but we got a whole new generation. And unfortunately, this generation needs to be taught these very, very simple lessons. And what is that? Well, everybody's important. It's not black or it's not white. It really should be Americans. If you're an American, we're all in this together. Not that we're better than any other country in the world, better than any other culture in the world. Obviously, we are not. But if you're going to divide me up, make it along nationalistic lines. Make it because we are blessed to be in the greatest country in the world where you can recreate yourself at a turn. That's what's being lost on today's generation, being lost in this country today. The fact that being an American means nothing. As a matter of fact, you have the latest generations absolutely just hating America, hating their privilege, hating the absolute opportunities that they have because they've been trained to do so by the radical left. And anybody at any time who punks the radical left, well, they've got my full support. So kudos to Kanye and kudos to Candice Owens for turning the world upside down by simply stating a fact. White lives do matter. Black lives do matter. Lives matter. And when you talk about life mattering, that covers over a whole lot of leftist policies that have gone awry, from abortion to homelessness to what's happening on our border. Lives do matter. And we need to have the Constitution. We need to have the rule of law. And we really need to get back to the Christian principles that founded this nation and gave us a post, a guiding point where we could stand on and say, you know what, this is wrong. This is right. We need to do better here, but we need to do it together. My name is James C. Harris. This is my YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to it. Hit that notification bell. Every time you put up a new video, you will be notified. Until we meet again, let's go.